Regarding the principles of eXtreme programming, the first principle is that people develop software. And basically, this is quite interesting because when you have this kind of approach where people develop software, we are speaking about humanity. You have good developers, you have a team where you feel good, that you all share the same values, but make sure that all the basic needs are attained. So, yes, you should pay your developers good money because you want them to accomplish and feel that they have accomplished something that has nothing to do with money. So, remove the basic needs out of the way and work on the feelings of accomplishment, belonging, growth, both personally and socially, as well as technically. Okay, and something that is quite and has a lot of issues related to social cult in distinct cultures is intimacy. You should respect intimacy while providing some type of intimacy in your teams. Okay, there's a balance that actually have to be considered here. The balance is between the individual needs of each member of the team and the actual needs of the team as a team, of a working team and functional and highly functional team. Somebody has to pay for all this. So this is quite good to consider that people all share the same values and do a lot of work, and the teams are self-organizing, and the team should work with the business people, and the customer is always present. But the idea, and you should have this in mind, especially if you're not the one that is paying all the bills, is that somebody actually has to pay for all of this. And yes, the customer has to pay. What type of planning, what type of business economic model is behind the value that is being brought to you by the customer? So the idea behind eXtreme programming is to actually value time and use time as the money. So $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. Yes, you could propose to the client to deliver working software in a couple of months and then collect in a couple of months 10,000 euros. But you can actually collect to the customer 1,000 euros in the next couple of weeks. And not only is the customer feeling more engaged, as you actually have more money on your side sooner. So when you're opting for this model, this implies that you have incremental design. And basically, when you have incremental design, there is something that is later known as technical debt that increases, and increases highly. Why? Because usually you defer all the design decisions to the last responsible minute. You only take action regarding the update of the design when you actually are sure that the client really requires that feature to be implemented. Another option is the pay-per-use. So when you pay-per-use, you actually are saying to your customer that he will pay only what he is using. So in this model, you are trying to establish a balance between what you're providing and what the customer needs and what the customer will pay. Another option is to actually have an option value of systems and teams. So the idea is you have a system and you have a team. You specialize your team in a couple of technological skills, and you have a system that basically, if it is generic enough, you can redeploy that system for several contexts. The same way that you can actually reuse the skills of the team that gets specialized for several projects. Something to consider is that you shouldn't invest in speculative flexibility. So please take this into consideration. If you're planning to use eXtreme programming and you're trying to implement eXtreme programming, one of the things that you should consider, do not promote the technical expertise of a team if it isn't being applied directly on a real project. Because you are enduring and you are supporting a lot of costs that might not be paid in the future. Every activity should benefit all concerned. This is kind of something that doesn't make much sense if you're used to dealing with traditional software development. Because if you're a customer, you pay and you get what you want. If you're a developer, you have to work. And this is not something that you don't consider it as fun, as an entertainment. So what this means is that in everything that is being done regarding the software development project, everything should be considered as a benefit for you, yourself, for your team, and for your customer. And it's quite possible to think like this because, for instance, let's think that you have a lot of documentation of your software and you spend an entire month working on the documentation of your software. And you have a lot of diagrams, and UML diagrams are quite good for this because they can consume a lot of time when you're doing it. But basically, what you have at the end of that month is a folder. It's a file, if it's in digital format, where you have a lot of documentation of something that is supposed to do a lot of distant things, but in the meantime hasn't provided anything useful and it isn't working software for your client. So when you are trying to produce documentation, please try to think of it as something that will not violate your mutual benefit, because writing documentation is boring task for most of us, okay? And the customer can't do anything with the documentation that you are producing. So instead of writing a lot and extensive documentation, consider using some techniques that could benefit both you, your team, and the customer. Write automated tests because tests are required for both of verification and validation process of the software product that you are developing, okay? Refactor. If something isn't good in your code, try to arrange for new ways to have the code structured. Choose names from a coherent and explicit set of metaphors. Usually, these metaphors are directly related to the context where you are working. And think that everything that you are doing is always a benefit. It's a benefit for you as an individual now. It's a benefit for you as an individual later because you are not conducting a boring task. Later, you will be grateful for not having wasted too many hours doing extensive documentation, but you do need that your code gets documented, and this is where the automated tests enter. And the idea is to satisfy and provide benefit to your customer. So your customer will thank you for having enough documentation, but not having extensive documentation. When nature finds a shape that works, she uses it everywhere she can. This is a fact, and you can observe it in a daily basis. There are a couple of even geometrical shapes that are a part of our everyday life. You can actually decompose some of the most common objects that you use on a daily basis on a house with a shape that actually works, and nature and ourselves as humans are used to working with this. Think of self-similarity. Try copying the structure of one solution into the next context. Even if the two contexts are at extreme opposites of scale. You have a small project, you have a large project, but when copying a solution or the structure of a solution, you are optimizing because you already know that structure and this will work as the basis. It's a good place to start. Obviously, you don't copy paste projects. So in self-similarity, it doesn't mean that you actually copy a project and apply it directly and everything will work and you don't have to do anything further. No, but the idea is to have a good place to start. In software development, perfect is a verb, not an adjective. So you don't have perfect software, you perfect your software on a daily basis, on an hourly basis. Let's see. Sometimes you listen to something that is called the good enough principle. So the idea behind good enough is not to do it on an inconsistent way and do it rather fast and don't look at it any further. The idea is to do the best you can today, but don't wait for perfection. Perfection will come with time if you have the time to look at it. So do the best you can today. Don't do it in a sloppy way, don't do it fast. Do the best you can today, but don't wait for perfection in order to begin. So you probably will not be able to begin in your lifetime. Strive daily to bring perfection closer to reality. Every time that you are producing code, every time you are conducting and creating new tests, every time you are designing, every time you are an architect, you are conceiving, you are designing software architecture, you learn something new that you can apply the next time that you have similar problems. So if you do this exercise on a daily basis, you are entering in the path to bring perfection to your actions every day.